morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
Well, he's played that sweet-sounding fiddle with a band at many a Saturday night country dance and as part of our Cruisin Cowboy band on a bunch of different cruise ships. He's ranched in the same part of the West all his life, ridden good horses, raised fine cattle, and he's just written his second book. So this week, I called my friend Don Howard to catch up on some of his adventures.
Sharon and Don Lee came along and just rode up, caught up to me, and they couldn't believe the predicament the mayor and I were in.
And Baxter Black takes a hard look at the young people of today.
And I think that rural, small-town folks, in many cases, are able to do a better job raising our kids.
The Rangeland News has a bunch of interesting information.
The Canadian and Mexican markets are huge for us, and we need to make this happen and get some certainty back into the marketplace.
And a guy who will make his first appearance at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival in March, Montana. Rancher Jim Hamilton is in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight.
It's easy to say, hell, I'd ride him all day. Now, Cowboy, be careful. You might get a fall.
On the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, a look at a type of horse that's really in demand, but there is some confusion about the pedigree. And this is pretty unusual for me, but I haven't been on a horse for more than a couple of weeks. The snow is about 3 feet deep, and it's been just too darn cold for this old guy. Seems that I'm turning into what Bren Hill is singing about.
I'm just a fair weather cowboy, top hand when it's sunny, warm and clear. I'll be the woolliest, wildest buckaroo, but only when summertime is here. Oh, near when that big old sky's bright and blue. Ooh, I am the man you should employ, but I'll be gone when that autumn wind blows through, 'cause I'm just a fair weather cowboy. My old hoss is cow horse born and bred. He likes dragging calves and roping steer. He'll sort and gather in beautiful weather, and then turn out to pasture for 9 months of the year. As long as it ain't dusty, dry and hot, not too hot, riding him is a fundamental joy. Give you everything we got if it ain't raining, 'cause I'm just a fair weather cowboy. Ask me, them cowpokes, they're all crazy to sit up on a horse out in the rain. Why, if it was me, I'd go in and watch a western movie and lament. I am just like old John Wayne when it's sunny, when that big old sky's bright and blue. I am the man you should employ, but I'll be gone when that autumn wind blows through, 'cause I'm just a fair weather cowboy. Or I'll tell you folks, I'm just a fair weather cowboy, fresh out of Percocet. I'm just a fair weather cowboy.
Well, Brent Hill found some pretty hot pickers on that one. I'm just a fair weather cowboy. Well, I tried calling Don Howard a little while ago, but Carmen said he was still out feeding cows, but he just called back. And I've got him on the line from the ranch near Drumheller right now.
I'm sure enjoying your new book, Wild Garlic and Dawn Scents. How'd you come up with that title?
Well, I thought of the one, Wild Garlic, because there's a little story in there about my wife and wild garlic, and then my wife came up with the Dawn Scents. I think she's always calling what I say is nonsense.
Yeah, that's more Dawn Scents.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a cute story about Carmen and an outhouse or something that was on the place in the book. How did that go?
Yeah. That was when we moved on to an old farmstead when we were first married, and my brother Bob came over to, it was late in the fall. He came over to plan a hunting trip, and it was cold outside with a very chilly wind. This was probably sometime in the 1st of November, and Carmen, not wanting to use the inside facility when company was there, ducked outside to the outhouse. I had never taken time to fix the old outhouse. It would rock back and forth in the wind, and it would trap you inside sometimes.
Trap you inside?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, anyway, the wind was blowing pretty hard this night, and we didn't even know she was out there. We thought she was in the bedroom reading, so we were planning our hunting trip there, and then pretty soon we thought what we heard was coyotes howling. They'd been howling every night, and I always enjoy hearing their.
Yeah.
And Bob said, "Holy cow, there's a couple right out close there. They're pretty darn close to the house." And we said, "Well, we'll have to go coyote hunting one of these days." We said, "There's getting too many of them." We agreed. So our visiting got cut short when we heard the back door open and bang shut. It was Carmen. "Where did you come from? And did you hear the coyotes howling out there?" She says, "There's no coyotes out there, you two stupid idiots. That was me hollering for help. I've been in there for half an hour and you let me freeze in there. I've been hollering for help for half an hour now." It tipped over the one way, trapping her inside.
With the door side down?
Yep.
Oh,
and I fixed it the next day.
That was probably a good thing.
That night, the coyote set up a real chorus of howling.
Ah, poor Carmen, and what a sweet person she is. She has to be to put up with Dawn, I guess. Well, one of the things I want to get into is outrunning bulls when you're on foot, and how that's worked for you, Dawn, and we'll do that when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. How about a weekend pass to the 24th Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 19th to 22nd, 2020. Another outstanding lineup of the finest pure Western entertainers anywhere. Canadian legend Gary Velgar.
Searching for freedom, westward the wagons, they settled in the valleys of sagebrush and pine.
Tom Cole.
In a big prairie moon rides a big prairie sky.
The first Kamloops appearance for Doug Figgs.
A good horse under me, it's easy to see. I'm right here where I want to be.
A pasture full of great cowboy poets, the BC Cowboy Hall of Fame inductions, dinner shows, daytime entertainment, and a spectacular art and gear show workshop. The best place to get all the information, bcchs.com. To order tickets, call 1-888-763-2221. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Got a very interesting song coming up from Randy Houston, but right now I'm really enjoying the visit with Don Howard, longtime rancher from the shortgrass country, and we were talking about what good shape we used to be in, Don.
Can't run very fast anymore.
Well, me neither.
That's how.
Did you used to be able to run pretty fast?
Well, I was never a real fast runner. One time there, a bull come running at me when we were at the same place when we were first married. And it was in the dark. I came home and Carmen said, "Watch that bull." He trailed me in the barn, and I had to stay in the old barn there for a couple hours till he went back to see if the milk cow was safely in calf. And so I was listening for him, and sure enough, there he comes. And I thought that was one time I broke the speed limit.
You did get to safe ground.
I got to safe ground and ran into the back of my mare in the barn there. She was just standing there.
Well, that startled her.
Startled her. She did. Dang near made a door in the opposite wall.
I know we've had our interesting episodes with bulls. We had a very interesting one just last summer where we had a bull that was pastured at a neighbor's place, and one bull, and he phoned and he said, Chester's gone missing. When you're riding out in the 7-0 range, keep your eye out for him. And Billy and I found him, and actually that story wound up in Canadian Cowboy Country magazine last month, I think.
I did read that one.
Yeah, that was happened exactly that way.
That was a good story.
And Billy rode up and said, after I finally was calling that bull all kinds of names, and said, Hugh, that's the wrong bull. I just penned the one we want. Help me close the gate.
Well, we've got to take these women along with us sometimes, you bet. In a bad storm in November in 2017 there, we finally found our bull, but he gave us a bad time coming in. A couple of times it took to get him corralled, and finally took our daughter Donnelly along, and our granddaughter Jordan, and there was 4 or 5 of us, but we all had ropes this time. He was coming in, he just didn't know it. But anyway, he went right in. We'd taken a couple of cows out to chase over to him to cool him off a little bit. And anyway, Donnelly said when we got him in the corral, she said, I don't know what you guys had such a tough time getting that bull in. He said, she said it just took a woman to do it.
But was that the one in the big, deep snow drifts where...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darren lost 4 or 5 steer calves in the dugout on that one.
Yeah.
And there was anywhere from 4 to 9 feet drifted over the dugout, you see, and then the cattle came in to get water, and they drowned in there in the deep slush. He found a moose the next summer in another pasture in a dugout, a big bull moose. So if a moose can't get out, the cattle sure won't.
Yeah, challenging times for sure, Don. Well, I also in the book read about some of your adventures riding through country that's covered with badger holes and what that can lead to. But first, though, here's a pretty interesting song from Randy Houston that it kind of blends the best of Irish folk music with the sound of Mexico.
His mama was born in Nogales, across the Rio Grande. His daddy came across the ocean, all the way from Ireland. They named him Carlos Mendoza O'Malley. He chose the vaquero life, and you could find him at the Shamrock Cantina every Saturday night. And he'd sing Danny Boy, and it made the cattle bawl, Jesusita de Chihuahua, and the lonesome cattle call. Molly was his rose at home in the saguaro, loving today in the land of tomorrow. Of the Shamrock Cantina was named Molly O'Brien Romero. Men longed for that red-headed beauty, but she loved her green-eyed vaquero. When Carlos would come into town, she fixed him fish and chips, enchiladas. Molly dreamed of a fancy church wedding, but Mama said he's no bueno por nada. And he'd sing Danny Boy, and it made the cattle bawl, Jesusita de Chihuahua, and the lonesome cattle call. Molly was his rose at home in the saguaro, loving today in the land of tomorrow. They got married in the church by the river. The one with the stained glass ventana. You can still hear the voice of Don Carlos all across the land of Mañana. He sings Daddy Boy and it makes the cattle bawl. Jesucita de Chihuahua and the lonesome cattle call. Molly is his rose at home in the saguaro, loving today in the land of tomorrow. Molly is his rose at home in the saguaro, loving today in the land of tomorrow. Loving today in the land of tomorrow.
And getting back to Don Howard again now, we were talking about the hazards, some of the terrain you've got to ride through.
A lot of badger holes in our country here. You know, it seems to be out on the prairie there, it seems to be the popular place for the badgers and the gophers. Yeah, our cows needed moving there from our south lease to a north lease we had on the slopes of the hand hills. And we were glad to get them off the Verdon Valley Highway, as the traffic could be quite bad at times. And trailing them north on a back road there, I thought I'd better get ahead of them and get a count on them. They knew where they were heading by this time, the cows did, and they were on the run for the open gate. I never did get my count on them. Frankie Wilson had just built a new 4-strand barbed wire fence, and I was loping along to get ahead of them alongside this fence when I felt the big mare I was riding going down. Somehow luck or instinct told me to roll left away from the fence. When I picked myself up off the ground, my shotgun shafts were tore off in shreds, and I didn't even feel the cuts and rips in my leg till later. But my mare was struggling to get up under the fence, and she picked up the bottom wire around the saddle horn. And she was a strong mare, but only able to stand partly up with her 4 legs straddled out. The wire was so tight you could have played a tune on it.
Oh, man.
I talked to her to keep her quiet, and she was basically under a 4-strand barbed wire fence standing up. Darren and Don Lee came along and just rode up and caught up to me, and they couldn't believe the predicament the mare and I were in. And so we pulled the saddle as quick as we could and pulled the mare away from the treacherous barbed wire. But anyway, the mare and I came out of that one lucky. We caught up in the fence with that wire over the saddle. That badger hole had a pile of dirt around it, but neither one of us seen it.
Well, there's more from Don in just a little while, and next, Baxter Black has an insightful look at the young folks of today from the city and from the country. And the Rangeland News, among other things, looks back at a story from about 73 years ago, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. 100 Mile House Cowboy concert tickets are now available, and they're only $20 each. Saturday, February the 8th. Choose between a 2 o'clock matinee or a 7 o'clock evening show. Gary Felgard, Bruce Rolfe, and Jeremy Willis will entertain. Tickets available at PMT Chartered Professional Accountants, Work and Play, and 100 Mile Feed. Proudly sponsored by the Free Press and Country 840. For more information, call Mark, 1-888-763-2221.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and I'll be right back after this with a little peek at country kids.
Your land is a legacy, a challenge from those who tended it before you to build on their foundations. At Corteva Agriscience, we understand what it means to be the stewards of a legacy. We embrace the challenge of building on the foundation of Dow AgroSciences to maintain your trust, to bring new solutions, to help you care for your land. See how we can help build your legacy at rangeandpasture.com.
And for our Canadian listeners, just check Corteva.ca, the Canadian website.
I'm a middle-aged man who, for the most part, has lived my life in a rural, small-town setting. I have not had much personal exposure to violence, insolence, and rebellion in school children, yet I continue to read and hear about the horrific behavior exhibited by some young people in the school environment. of shootings, threats, and other atrocities. Now, I'm not so naive that I refused to believe my daughter when she would tell me that she could buy all the illegal drugs she wanted, if she chose to, and I remember a tragic act of insanity from my high school days involving a classmate and murder. And I acknowledge that bullies, cheats, and thieves have always been part of any social group. But differences between kids was not resolved with guns and knives. Now, we can place the blame on inflammatory movies, lax parenting, overcrowded schools, amoral role models in sports, politics, and entertainment, and or lack of discipline. But I think that rural, small-town folks, in many cases, are able to do a better job raising our kids. And the reason lies in the adage, it takes a village to raise a child. Over a period of years, we in small communities get to know all the children. And we know the parents, and we see them in the grocery store, in church, at work, on the farm, and at PTA. And there are caring, involved parents who inobtrusively keep an eye on the whole flock of little chicks. They worry and they care, and it all helps. On my plane ride home from Louisville, Kentucky, from the National FFA Convention this fall, I sat next to a frustrated college professor. He described to me the disrespectful, foul-mouthed, combative attitude some of his students displayed in class. His words came back to me at the end of the convention after I had spent 4 days in close contact, surrounded even, by a steady string of many of the 46,000 vocational agricultural high school students who had come. I spoke individually with thousands of them. Never once did I get called Pops or Old Man or treated disrespectfully. Almost always I heard a please or a thank you. I saw 2 earrings on boys, more ties and dresses than I've seen since my senior prom, and in 4 days I overheard 1 hell. It struck me that maybe we're doing some things right out here. And by the way, I'm proud of those kids. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by Corteva Agri-Science.
How about a weekend pass to the 24th Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 19th to 22nd, 2020. Another outstanding lineup of the finest pure Western entertainers anywhere. Canadian legend Gary Villiard.
Searching for freedom, westward the wagons, they settled in the valleys of sagebrush and pine.
Tom Cole.
In a big prairie moon rides a big prairie sky.
The first Kamloops appearance for Doug Figgs.
A good horse under me, it's easy to see. I'm right here where I want to be.
A pasture full of great cowboy poets, the BC Cowboy Hall of Fame inductions, dinner shows, daytime entertainment, and a spectacular art and gear show workshop. The best place to get all the information, bcchs.com. To order tickets, call 1-888-763-2221. Just ahead of the Rangeland news, if you frequent the Saddle Dome in Calgary, chances are you've seen this guy singing the national anthem before Calgary Flames home games. It's a good day to ride, according to George Canyon.
Every morning when I wake up, I pour coffee in my cup, and I look out on the fields and land that I call home. And if there's no chance of rain and I need to get away, I'll grab a saddle and be long, long gone. Looks like a good day to ride underneath this big warm sun. Looks like a good day to let this old boy fly. Boots on the rails and on the road to a blue and endless sky. Looks like a good day to ride. There's a world that's in a race for some money and some fame. Well, out here there's nothing. All I need is what I have. So when I want to free my mind from the concrete and the signs, I head for the mountains, back to who I am. Looks like a good day to ride underneath this big warm sun. Looks like a good day to let this old boy fly. Loose like a good day to ride. Looks like a good day to ride. Yeah.
If you live in Alberta, you can enjoy the Kamloops Cowboy Festival without having to worry about driving. Frontier Bus Lines will make their 4th annual tour to the Cowboy Festival, departing March 19th from Central Alberta. The tour includes deluxe motor coach transportation with an experienced tour guide, tickets for the dinner dance, Thursday evening 4 nights at the Coast Hotel, daily breakfast, a weekend pass to the festival, and all 3 dinner shows. You'll depart Red Deer at 7 a.m. on March 19th. Get the details at frontierbuslines.com or call 1-888-538-7287.
Now the news of the Rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
At the top of page 1, it says, it seems the U.S. is anxious to ratify the new USMCA trade deal as soon as possible. Rod Bain has the latest.
The question now becomes, when will the entire U.S. Senate take up the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement for a vote? Due to action taken earlier this week,
25 ayes, 3 nays, the bill is reported
by the Senate Finance Committee chaired by Chuck Grassley of Iowa to forward the trade deal to the Senate. Speculation varies on Senate consideration, starting within days, perhaps weeks, based on various legislative matters, as well as USMCA perhaps being reviewed by other Senate committees. With the House already passing USMCA last month, many in the ag sector anxiously await its ratification, such as John Doggett of the National Corn Growers Association.
The Canadian and Mexican markets are huge for us, and we need to make this happen and get some certainty back into the marketplace.
Mexico's legislative body has already ratified USMCA, and Canada's parliament is expected to consider the matter later this month. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Canadians may be eating less beef, but offshore customers seem to be hungry for more. Canadian per capita consumption is about 17.6 kilograms retail weight, but exports to Japan were record high in 2018, thanks in part to a favorable trade agreement where tariffs are being reduced, according to Ron Glasser of Canada Beef. While the national herd is not growing, increased imports of U.S. feeder cattle kept feedlots full and packing plants running at capacity. And Ron says the cattle herd has been flat, and our ability to grow domestic production and exports comes from the importation of feeder cattle. As far as imports, the beef comes primarily from the U.S., Australia, New Zealand, and Uruguay. And Dr. Max Hawkins, a feed expert with Alltech, is cautioning cattle producers to test feed that was harvested late in the season for mycotoxins to make sure it's safe. Mycotoxin levels were low in early samples of feed harvested in Western Canada, but then things changed. Depending on the species of livestock and the type and level of mycotoxin, feed contamination can cause digestive disorders, including vomiting, intestinal damage, and altered rumen function. Mycotoxins can also suppress immunity, lower pathogen resistance, and lead to a greater need for veterinary care. Ranchers in Montana have made claims on more than 360 animals killed by mountain lions, grizzly bears, or wolves in 2019. Those claims led the state to pay ranchers more than $247,000, and that would, of course, be U.S. funds. In 2019, that's the third consecutive year a new record was set for the payouts. Madison County, located southwest of Bozeman, saw the most livestock losses with 44 animals killed. The number of losses to grizzly bears almost doubled the losses to wolves. I was looking for something down in the basement last week and started browsing through my old magazine collection, and I came across a copy of Canadian Cattleman magazine from June 1947. And I'll refer to an article in it in the horse training file coming up. But boy, it was interesting, especially some of the ads like round cedar fence posts, 12 to 15 inches around, 7 to 10 feet long, 20 cents each. And a handsome cowboy bridle with embossed flower pattern and 7/8 russet reins, a grand total of $8. And in a column named Bunkhouse Philosophy by W.R. Cochran of Cowley, Here's an interesting thought on price inflation. He says, when you go to buy a shirt these days, fine if you can get one at all. The price has been made long and the tail short. Time was when you bought a shirt, you got a garment with a tail long enough so that several abbreviations could be made for patches. But now if you button the collar to keep the wind off your brisket, the darn tail pulls up out of your britches. Oh my. I guess some people still patch their shirts. Anyway, the next regular cattle sale at the BC Livestock Co-op Kamloops Yards is February the 11th. Regular sale in Vanderhoof, the next one February 14th. And the next sale at the Williams Lake Yards is February 27th. You can get all the information and watch the sale streaming live at bclivestock.bc.ca. Meanwhile, out of the Innisfail Auction Market, a pre-sort feeder sale on February the 10th, regular sales every Wednesday, and lots of special sales coming up. You can find the whole list at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com or just give Mark, Danny, or Dwayne a call, toll-free 1-800-710-3166. Oh yeah, now this week's final item. You know, it seems lately every time Billy and I go down to shop in town, I get myself in trouble. Last week, we got into the big grocery store, and Billy said, I just have to find the ladies' room. I said, okay, I'll get a shopping cart. And as soon as I got the cart in the door, there she was. And I said, that didn't take you long. And he says, I went the wrong way. And I have no idea why, but I said, you mean standing up? You should have seen the look I got. Ooh. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up, more stories from Don Howard and something different on the Irvin Saddles and Western Wire Horse Training File when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. 100 Mile House Cowboy concert tickets are now available, and they're only $20 each. Saturday, February the 8th. Choose between a 2 o'clock matinee or a 7 o'clock evening show. Gary Felgar, Bruce Rolfe, and Jeremy Willis will entertain. Tickets available at PMT Chartered Professional Accountants, Work and Play, and 100 Mile Feed. Proudly sponsored by the Free Press and Country 840. For more information, call Mark, 1-888-763-2221. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Coming up on the Irvin Saddles and Western Wire Horse Training File, a listener has a very interesting question about a type of horse that there is some confusion about. And I'll go back to a surprising source to get the answer. But first, here is the latest on the next Spirit of the West cruise. We are calling this The Spirit of the West Brings It Home. And as I said last week, this will be our 19th annual, and after that many years, Billy and I will be stepping back from hosting cruises after this one. So we really want to make it memorable and as uncomplicated as possible. So here's how we plan to do things. Folks from Alberta, Saskatchewan, and beyond, and in the U.S. will probably fly to Kelowna, BC on July 15th, overnighting there in a beautiful hotel, and then board the coaches for a trip up to the McLennan Ranch, our little place above Kamloops. And you'll be treated to a live show with the amazing Western Spirit Band, along with special guest Lewis the Big Rig McIver, who of course gave me one of his kidneys. And after the visit to our place, the coaches will take you to beautiful Sun Peaks, where you can ride the chairlift, see the mountain wildflowers, and see the place where cattle still graze and have done so in the summers for over 100 years. After overnighting there, the coaches head to Vancouver. You overnight then, and in the next morning, board the beautiful Holland America Carling's Dam for a 7-day trip up the Inside Passage to Alaska and back. You don't fly back, you ride the ship back. And we'll have lots of special events for our cruise group, including one of our favorite trips, the White Pass Railroad. We sure hope you can join Billy and I on our farewell cruise, and for all the information, you can see the cruise page at hugh-mclennan.com and call 1-800-530-0131. When the evening chores are done and supper's over on these long, cold winter evenings, when there's nothing worth watching on TV, Billy and I have been going back over the videos that she's taken on so many of our memorable cruises, and it just brings back all those great times. And I will be putting more footage up from some of them on our cruise Facebook page too. You might really enjoy seeing how much fun we had. The outdoor music and poetry and sing-along sessions, the group tours, the terrific camaraderie. And we can't wait for the next one, which will, of course, be the final one for us. But the Spirit of the West cruises will continue.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
Have you experienced Irvine Tack and Western Wear lately? If not, saddle up and see what's new for the new year. Speaking of saddles, there's over 1,400 to choose from. Over 1,400. Family owned, always friendly, and get this, over 100,000 square feet of selection. Irvine's has all the big names you're after, like Wrangler and Ariat, Cinch, Cruel Girl, and more. They're open 7 days a week. Exit 305 off Highway 2 by Crossfield.
Canada's largest Western store.
Well, this really isn't a training question, but I thought it was interesting. A listener has always loved Palomino horses and thought he might start a breeding program, but he wondered if there really is a Palomino breed or is it just a color? Well, you might be surprised where I went for the information. No, not to Google. That doesn't work when our power's off. I found the 1947 issue of Canadian Cattleman magazine in the basement, and in an article by former Alberta Lieutenant Governor Grant McEwen, this is what I read from an article titled Horse with the Coat of Gold. The problem is some geneticists argue the color of a Palomino is a heterozygous condition and will not breed true. A Palomino crossed with a Palomino may produce a Palomino foal, or it may produce a sorrel or an albino. When Palominos and sorrels or chestnuts are mated, about 50% of the offspring have been Palominos, and a mating of an albino on a sorrel will produce a Palomino every time. The Canadian Palomino Horse Association was organized in 1944, and they said the ideal is a horse with a coat the color of a gold dollar, but some shading, lighter or darker, is tolerated. Cream-colored horses are not. Dark eyes, dark skin, and dark hooves are wanted, and mane and tail must be white, ivory, or silver. White blazes and stockings are popular. The height must be over 14.5 hands with a short back, good muscling, clean limbs, flat bone, quality feet, and a good disposition. Those are the words of Grant McEwen, and in 1947 he was associate editor of Canadian Cattleman magazine. And his life story is well worth reading. Grant McEwen continued to be physically active, and he wasn't known to waste any time. He believed that anyone awake should be doing something. In his 80s, he still rode horses, hiked and walked, outpaced reporters on morning jogs, built a log cabin, and chopped logs with an axe. He lived until the age of 97, and we've got several of his books in our library. One of my favorites is John Ware's Cow Country. And for Urban Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. Something that our horses do real well on is that daily feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration. You can find out all about what it has at hoffmanshorseration.com. How about a weekend pass to the 24th Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 19th to 22nd, 2020. Another outstanding lineup of the finest pure Western entertainers anywhere. Canadian legend Gary Velgar.
Searching for freedom, westward the wagons, they settled in the valleys of sagebrush and pine.
Tom Cole.
In a big prairie moon rides a big prairie sky.
The first Kamloops appearance for Doug Figgs.
A good horse under me, it's easy to see. I'm right here where I want to be.
A pasture full of great cowboy poets, the BC Cowboy Hall of Fame inductions, dinner shows, daytime entertainment, and a spectacular art and gear show workshop. The best place to get all the information, bcchs.com. To order tickets, call 1-888-763-2221. Just got the news that Ian Tyson will be making an appearance at the 2020 Kamloops Cowboy Festival. More details in the coming weeks on that. There's another one of Don Howard's stories coming up after Abe Zacharias in a song he collaborated on with poet Mag Mooney.
As I walk around the old home place, my thoughts drift back in time and space. Old memories seem to cloud my tear-dimmed eyes. I remember Grandpa telling me, when I die, just bury me beneath that old oak tree beyond the rise. Back when I was barely 4, I'd wear the spurs that Grandpa wore. He promised me that someday they'd be mine. I can still see Grandpa grinning when I got those rowels spinning. Oh, I wish that it could happen one more time. Now Grandpa's spurs don't jingle anymore. I can still see them hanging on the ranch house door. As I stroke the faded leather, cracked and dried up from the weather, I know Grandpa's spurs don't jingle anymore. Those spurs have traveled everywhere, from roundups to the county fair, and raked the hides of broncs at the rodeo. They've been down some dusty trails through mud and sleet, snow and hail, and worn where tough old cowboys had to go. Grandpa hung them on the door when he couldn't cowboy anymore. He knew that I'd be coming back someday. Those spurs mean everything to me. They're part of Grandpa's legacy, and I treasure them much more than words can say. Now Grandpa's spurs don't jingle anymore. I can still see them hanging on the ranch house door. As I stroke the faded leather, cracked and dried out from the weather, I know Grandpa's spurs don't jingle anymore. I stroke the faded leather, cracked and dried out from the weather, I know Grandpa's spurs don't jingle anymore.
We're visiting with Don Howard this week, and Don, of course, has ranched all his life on the shortgrass prairie country, and he just released his second book of cowboy adventures, philosophy, and opinions called Wild Garlic and Nonsense. Now, in cattle country all over the West, inevitably late in the fall and even in the winter, stray cattle that have been eluded in the roundup will sometimes show up, and you get calls about that once in a while, Don.
Elson McDougall phoned and said, were we missing a big bull? There's one in his pasture, in the Titchy pasture by himself. And Deer and I loaded up 2 horses and went to look, and what should have been a simple job changed before we even got to the bull. I put my pony into a fast lope and said, I'll open the gate. I don't know why I didn't let my son open it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the proper thing to do.
The young guy does that, yeah.
Next thing I knew, I was groaning on the ground with the wind knocked out of me and my already injured shoulder driven into the ground. First thing we checked was the horse, of course, to see if it was packing a leg. It wasn't, so. But in the fairly thick grass, we find a huge and deep badger hole, well hidden.
Oh, boy.
And no dirt pile. Like, where does the worst dirt go? I've never figured that one out.
So did you get the bull for him?
Turned out it wasn't our bull.
Oh, after all that. That scares the heck out of me, you know, badger holes, and even, we have badgers and lots of, way too many gophers. And they're a different kind of gopher than I remember when I was a kid. They dig bigger holes even. And there are places on side hills where we've got to go chase cows. Yeah. And I've had guys say, don't worry about looking at them, just let your horse worry about them. You just go after the cows, and they'll do. But, boy, I don't know.
When you start making fast turns out there, and there's a lot of holes, so that's when it gets dangerous.
Oh, man, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Like that shoulder's bothered you for quite a long time. And how did it first get injured, or how did you first hurt it?
Well, mostly from horse falls, you know, and probably badger rolls. But I know one time I had a horse, I was leading it in, and another horse turned around on the horse, and the horse spun around and knocked me flying over on the frozen ground, and I hit on my shoulder. And I don't know, I've had so many injuries on it, and I didn't look after the darn thing. I should have gone in and had it operated on. I can't lift my arms above my head.
Yeah. So can you still throw a loop if you have to?
I'm good for one loop, and that's all.
So it better be good.
Yep.
Yeah. Gosh, that would kind of take some of the fun out of going to brandings if you can't heel calves.
Yeah, no, I can't heel anymore.
Or heel one and say, that's it, now I'm on the ground.
Puts me on the irons, which is okay.
We'll have more stories from Don's book in the coming weeks. And coming up in our classic Song of the West segment, you'll hear Don's fiddle, along with his neighbor Ed Peak, who have played so many of those great songs on so many of our cruises. And then Montana rancher Jim Hamilton in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. How about a weekend pass to the 24th Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 19th to 22nd, 2020. Another outstanding lineup of the finest pure Western entertainers anywhere. Canadian legend Gary Velgar.
Searching for freedom, westward the wagons, they settled in the valleys of sagebrush and pine.
Tom Cole.
In a big prairie moon rides a big prairie sky.
The first Kamloops appearance for Doug Figgs.
A good horse under me, it's easy to see. I'm right here where I want to be.
A pasture full of great cowboy poets, the BC Cowboy Hall of Fame inductions, dinner shows, daytime entertainment, and a spectacular art and gear show workshop. The best place to get all the information, bcchs.com. To order tickets, call 1-888-763-2221. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. In watching some of the memorable videos of our past Spirit of the West cruises over the years, it's been so nice watching our evening sing-alongs and Western music sessions with Ed Peak and Don Howard and various others. Ed and Diane have been on so many of them, and everybody loves his beautiful tenor voice and his fine guitar picking. And gosh, the guy knows hundreds and hundreds of songs. And when you add the sweet fiddle of Don Howard, you get this. A lot of our group has danced around the deck to songs like this one. Our classic Western song for this week, Ed and Don with Sioux City Sioux.
I rode a herd of cattle down from old Nebraska way. That's how I come to be in the state of Iowa. In Iowa, I met a gal, her eyes were big and blue. I asked her what her name was, she said Sioux City Sioux. Sioux City Sioux, Sioux City Sioux. Her hair is red, her eyes are blue. Swap my horse and dog for you. Sioux City Sioux, Sioux City Sioux. There ain't no gal as true as my sweet Sioux City Sioux. I asked her if she had a beau, she said yes, quite a few. Still I started courting my sweet Sioux City Sioux. And when I went to steal a kiss, I caught her stealing too. That's when I fell in love with my sweet Sioux City Sioux. Sioux City Sioux, Sioux City Sioux. Her hair is red, her eyes are blue. I swapped my horse and dog for you. Sioux City Sioux, Sioux City Sioux. There ain't no gal as true as my sweet Sioux City Sioux. Now I'm admitting Iowa, I owe a lot to you. I come from Nebraska to court Sioux City Sue. I'm gonna rope and tie her up, I'll lose my lasso. I'm gonna put my brand on that sweet Sioux City Sue. Sioux City Sue, Sioux City Sue. Her hair is red, her eyes are blue. I'll swap my horse and dog for you. Sioux City Sue, Sioux City Sue. There ain't no gal as true as my sweet Sioux City Sue.
In the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight now, Montana rancher Jim Hamilton, who will be making his first appearance at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival coming up in March.
Well, there's a time to be talking and a time to be walking, and friend, you best learn to tell 'em apart. Just because it looks easy, don't go getting too breezy. Take a minute to think before you jump in and start. Now you take bucking horses. There's a choice of courses when abilities are questioned and all. It's easy to say, hell, I'd ride him all day. Now, cowboy, be careful. You might get a fall. Think about your physique before you hastily speak. Do you like it the way that it is? A far better course might be just admire the horse. You won't rearrange things just to show off your phiz. Or take a fella that's tight and wanting to fight, and you'll want to punch him right square in the nose. You imagine the crowd's roar as he falls through the door. Now you've showed him how you treat your foes. But sometimes it's best, in this kind of test, to use diplomacy instead of brute force, 'cause there's always the chance that you won't win the dance. Then you'll hurt and be filled with remorse. Or it may look plumb funny to borrow lots of money for a cow deal you know just can't fail. You're convinced from the start that folks will say, man, but he's smart. You just know you can't help but prevail. But be careful, my friend, if you can't see to the end. Maybe half as much would do just as well. Though you know it can't fail, let better judgment prevail. Even instead of buying, it might be time to sell. Now, I don't advocate being late at the gate or too timid to jump when it's right. But stop and think just a bit and see both sides of it. It's not always easy, but often it's right. See, it's ego to blame as we play in life's game, and damn the man who has none. But sometimes too much can sure get you in Dutch. With just a mite less, life is sometimes more fun. So you see, there is a time to be talking and a time to be walking. Just be sure you can tell 'em apart. Just because it looks easy, don't go getting too breezy. Take a minute to think before you jump in and start.
Well, thanks so much for riding along with us this week, and I sure hope you'll be back next week at the same time right here. And as always, thanks to our great support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan. If you are looking for tractor parts, any make, any year, see Mark's page. It's bctractorparts.com. And if you enjoy this program, I know you'll enjoy Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine. You can subscribe online at cowboycountrymagazine.com. Be sure and check out our YouTube channel where you can see all of our programs with great video. And you can also download the program as a podcast. Get all the links at our website, hugh-mclennan.com. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.